I thought I'd live in this house with just my mom and me, but my husband, Alex, suddenly changed everything. Out of nowhere, Alex said, "I'll take care of all the bills, but I need you to leave." His words shocked me, and I couldn't understand why. Things only became clearer when my mother-in-law finished transferring the condo contract into her name. My name is Clara, and I'm 34 years old. My dad, who ran a small workshop in a little town, named me because I was born on a bright summer day. It's a simple name, but it's filled with his love. My dad was known for his skill at polishing, and even when things got hard, I loved spending time in the workshop as a kid. Sadly, the workshop started having money problems, and one day, my dad passed away in the back of the shop when I was still in elementary school. My mom and I left town to start over, but life wasn't easy. Over the years, the stress wore her down, and she passed away while I was in high school. Even though I was heartbroken, I decided to stay strong and honor my dad's memory by keeping his skills alive. I worked hard to finish high school, getting scholarships and working part-time jobs to make ends meet. Later, I studied engineering at a public university. It was during college that I met Alex. He was kind and encouraging, and he saw my potential. Unlike others, he never judged me for being a woman in engineering, which gave me more confidence. After college, we moved in together. Alex handled most of the chores, which was a big help on my busy days. When I turned 28, I started thinking about bringing my dad's workshop back to life. Alex supported me completely, and we often talked about getting married, but I wanted to rebuild the workshop before planning a wedding, and Alex understood. To fund the project, I used crowdfunding. I shared my story as a female engineer and my dream of honoring my dad's legacy. People loved the idea, and with years of hard work, I finally reopened the workshop. This time, I made sure the workshop wouldn't face the same struggles. I added modern machines and gave the space a fresh, sleek look. I also created a workplace that was welcoming to women, making it easier for them to thrive. These changes quickly made the workshop one of the best in the industry. Some people might think my success came from luck, but it was really because of facing a lot of challenges and working hard. James, my partner from college, understood this best, but James was struggling in his own career. While his colleagues moved up, he stayed in the same position. Eventually, he became frustrated and said, "You're so lucky to have made it. There must be someone better for you than me." I kept reassuring him that I wouldn't have succeeded without his support. I truly believed he played a huge role in my achievements. To show him how grateful I was, I asked him to marry me. I cherished his special presence and the kindness he showed me every day. Even though I felt safe and happy with him, I started to notice changes in how he felt over the 10 years we had been together. I thought marriage would help him feel more secure. Once we decided to get married, we quickly told our families, but when we went to James's family home, I was surprised to see it was an old, falling apart house, which made me worry about its safety. When James's mom saw me, she said, "You're the daughter of that rich business owner they always talk about," referring to my past media coverage and fundraising efforts. In my pursuit of success, I always thought first impressions were important, but when it came to James's family, things weren't what I expected. I spent a lot of time making sure I looked presentable, but to his mom, my outfit probably seemed too fancy. She started speaking sarcastically, suggesting that I only looked good because of James's help. I was grateful, but as I walked into their old house, I could feel the tension. James seemed quiet, as though he was thinking about something, but didn't say anything. His dad, wearing worn-out clothes and acting restless, made the house feel even more uncomfortable. Apologizing for the state of their home, he acknowledged that it wasn't like the house of a wealthy person. I tried to stay calm and took deep breaths. Every time I made a small comment, his parents would respond by saying things like, "Rich people think differently than regular people like us," which made it hard to have a real conversation. Later, I asked James about his parents' views on wealth, and he shared something surprising. He had been taught that fancy buildings were probably built unfairly, and that rich people were greedy and didn't care about others' struggles. His parents had even warned him not to be friends with wealthy kids. Even though I hadn't grown up wealthy, I was curious to understand why his parents felt that way. But no matter how much I tried to improve things, Todd's parents didn't approve of our relationship. His mom often worried I was asking too much of him, and his dad advised him not to let me control everything in our marriage. These thoughts seemed to be affecting James's confidence. For me, my success was about honoring my late father's dream, not looking down on others. Even though James had talked about this with his parents, my achievements left a strong impression on them. I tried my best to build a connection with them, but no matter what I did, James's dad continued to judge me, saying, "This is how rich people think." Their reactions hurt me, and it made me pull away. As James began visiting his family more because of his dad's poor health, we started growing apart, even though we were married and living together. About 2 years later, James suddenly told me he was quitting his job because he was too busy with family stuff. I was furious that he made such a big decision without consulting me first. At that point, our relationship had become empty, with no real communication. He said he was busy with chores, but I found out he was often going to casinos and racetracks. When I confronted him, James suggested hiring a housekeeper, saying he wasn't my servant, and that we had enough money to afford it. His words left me stunned and speechless. 2 months later, James's dad passed away. Afterward, when my mother-in-law and James visited, he shocked me by saying, "I plan to live in this house with my mom, just the two of us." I was stunned and couldn't respond. He continued, "I'll pay the rent, so I want you to leave." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked, "Are you really going to pay the rent, James?" Instead of a reasonable answer, my mother-in-law yelled at me, saying she couldn't forgive me for insulting them. James, unhappy with everything, sighed and said, "I'm not going to let anyone boss me around anymore. I'm going to live life my way." I was shocked by their harsh attitude and couldn't find the right words. After thinking about everything they had said and done, I realized dealing with them would be much harder than I had expected. I finally said, "I understand, I'll leave by next month." But my mother-in-law wasn't satisfied. She pushed for me to leave sooner, saying, "Can't you just get out of here next week? I'm ready to start my new life, and I've already arranged for my stuff to be delivered to my new house." Her sudden demand confused me. I had already agreed to leave, so I couldn't understand why she was rushing me. When I hesitated, she raised her voice even more, saying, "Someone as rich as you should just let professionals handle the move, right?" She kept making sarcastic comments, acting like being wealthy made me different from others. At first, I thought it made sense for them to move, since I was the one who had arranged for the house. But then my mother-in-law insisted, "This house belongs to James, no matter how much you earn. You can't forget that." I could tell she was trying to remind me that my money didn't make me better than James. Looking at James's smug expression, I started to wonder why I had spent so much time on someone like him. In that moment, I realized living with them had become unbearable. I didn't want to stay in the same space any longer. It was clear I needed to seriously think about divorce. I quietly said, "Okay, I'll start making moving arrangements this weekend and take care of all the paperwork." James and his mom exchanged looks, smirking like they had won some long battle. I quickly started searching for available apartments and condos, also looking for a reliable moving company. Between my work-related trips, I came home to find James still sleeping deeply, acting like I didn't even exist. That weekend, he signed the divorce papers without showing any emotion. Meanwhile, his mom was busy with the real estate agent, signing a rental contract for their new place. I couldn't help but worry if she truly understood the $66,000 rent. Once everything was sorted, I found myself walking alone toward my new apartment, leaving the high-rise condo behind. The new place, a one-bedroom unit in a secure building, was perfect for living alone. While moving, I decided to get rid of a lot of unnecessary things, clearing out my space and my mind for a fresh start. Decorating the new place was an enjoyable process, and slowly, thoughts of James and his family began to fade, though I couldn't fully forget them. As I reflected on the memories of our time together, especially the tough times in college when we both struggled, I never imagined our relationship would end this way. The bond we once shared had become strained over time, and it was hard to believe it had all fallen apart. Then, a couple of months later, I ran into a university friend who told me some shocking news. She mentioned that James had been seen hanging out in city clubs. Even more surprising, a former neighbor told me that my ex-mother-in-law was often seen driving a luxury foreign car, dressed in expensive fur clothes, and speaking in a completely different way than before. It was hard to believe, especially after they used to look down on the wealthy, but now they were living a lavish lifestyle. Then, 2 months later, I got an unexpected call from James. "I really need your help," he said, sounding desperate. I never expected to hear from him again, especially after everything that had happened. "Actually, we've run into some unexpected trouble," he continued. I asked what happened, and he told me that it all started 3 months earlier when his mom called him in excitement. "I won the lottery, can you believe it? $30 million, she had said, thrilled. She had been buying lottery tickets for a while, and this time, she was sure she had won the amount of her dreams. "Are you sure, or is this a joke?" James had asked. After checking the numbers over and over, his mom confirmed it. "There's no mistake. We're incredibly rich now. We can finally face those rich people without fear. God has truly blessed us." James was moved by her excitement, and his mom added, "With this fortune, you can finally get away from that woman. Have you heard? She's out with some young guy now. She's not worth your time." Her words pushed James to his breaking point. He was angry and frustrated, and when his mom said they could now live freely, he declared, "Now that we're rich, I won't be controlled by her anymore. We won't have anything to do with her again." It was clear that, in this moment, they had one goal: to completely shut me out. After that, they moved into a luxury condo downtown. spending money lavishly every day. James used up his savings, and his mom spent her late husband's inheritance without any hesitation. Excited, they rushed to the nearest bank to cash in the lottery ticket. However, at the bank, they were met with a shocking truth: the ticket they brought was from the previous year. Disbelief and disappointment spread across their faces. It turned out that James's mom had mixed up last year's ticket with the current winning numbers. As they dealt with the shock, there was also a deep fear that I might take their supposed wealth from them. I was taken aback when I heard their story and didn't know what to say. "That's really unfortunate and sad," I said, genuinely feeling for them. Just as I was about to hang up, James spoke again, asking, "But we should have a right to alimony, right?" He added, "Without any real reason. You were cheating, right? Because of that, we should be able to claim alimony." He seemed stressed about the house and believed he was entitled to alimony, but I clearly remembered that James had quit his job by choice. My emotions began to rise, and I couldn't stand his baseless claims. "I can't believe you'd say something like that, you slimy man. Are you serious?" I raised my voice without meaning to. In that moment, I felt my usual calmness slip away, and my patience started to break. James seemed surprised and confused by my reaction over the phone. "Honestly, I should be the one asking for alimony. You only care about yourself, heartlessly kicking me out, always going on about wanting to be rich. I heard that so many times. Why do you let your mom complain like that? I can't stand how you're just jealous and never try to improve yourself," I said, my anger taking over. After my outburst, there was a long silence. Then, a sense of clarity washed over me, and I hung up the phone. Their mistake with the lottery ticket didn't matter to me anymore. Whatever happened to them was no longer my concern. Days later, as I walked in front of my factory, I saw my ex-mother-in-law in a clearly miserable state. She approached me and began pleading. "Please help us. We can't afford to pay back the $66,000. Please come back and be part of our family again." It should have been written clearly in the documents. Why didn't James check them properly? Didn't you see how serious it was? And about that lottery ticket? I spoke slowly, choosing my words carefully. Would you really abandon a mother and child who've fallen into such misfortune? After a pause, I calmly shook my head and said, "I believe that luck is often something you create for yourself, even through hardships. I've worked hard to create my own future. How much of that mindset do you have?" Her face showed surprise and a bit of regret. She struggled to respond as I walked past her and towards the building. After a short walk, I turned to see my former mother-in-law still standing there, but I didn't look back again. I just kept walking forward, focused on my path. As expected, James and his mother were eventually kicked out of the luxury condo. They moved into an old wooden shack, having spent all their money. Now, they work various part-time jobs to get by and save for the future. Over the next few years, I dedicated myself to my work, and my factory grew far beyond its humble beginnings. I secured funds to buy a larger plot of land nearby and built a new, state-of-the-art factory there. This new facility was designed with employees in mind, featuring maternity leave and childcare services. Though my parents couldn't see the success firsthand, every time I see a couple with their children visiting the factory, I think of myself as a child and feel a deep sense of relief and happiness. Seeing them so happy,